Good morning, everyone. Please join us in singing our gathering hymn, Here We Have Gathered.
Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, you brave and few. Good to see you here this morning. Good to be with you, and welcome to First Unitarian Church, where we strive together to nurture the individual spirit and together work toward building the beloved community. Welcome those gathered here. Welcome those joining us online this morning. Today we begin our summer schedule with one service at 10 o'clock. Carter Smith, who just completed her ministerial internship with us, will serve as our summer minister this year. Carter will be responsible for the worship life and pastoral life of the church. I'm going to be taking a little break this summer, and you are in good hands with Carter. So thank you, Carter, for serving in this role. You're invited to socialize after the service. Today, we invite folks gathered to join in the narthex, or you can go down to Fuller Hall where you can catch the art wall display. And if you're online, there will be a link to a virtual social hour after the service. There's a lot to hold in these days, and I want to let you know about some special Matin services that some of our spiritual directors in the church will be offering beginning tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. This 30-minute Zoom service will include inspirational music and readings to hold a prayerful time of quiet comfort in community. You may listen in private contemplation without conversation or expectation, just a chance to be with others in community. These will happen beginning tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., also July 11th, and also August 15th. To register, you'll see a link at the end of the service. Finally, this morning, a note about the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly that was held here in Portland just at the end of last month. Hundreds of Unitarian Universalists were in our city, and many more took part virtually. Many people in this congregation made General Assembly a success. those who served as delegates, those who welcomed, those who offered their musical gifts, those who worked on aesthetics in many, many roles. I want to acknowledge the work of one person in particular, and that's our own Carol Hinton, who served as the local coordinator for General Assembly. Carol, thank you for all of your work to make this a success. Thank you. And now let's take a moment and greet our neighbors this morning. You can use the chat option online, and let's greet each other here. Carter will light the chalice here on our chancel this morning. If you have a candle or chalice at home, I invite you to light it now. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
The words for our call to worship this morning come from Reverend Lynn Unger. This is a new poem of hers that has shown up in my inbox a couple of times this week that I want to share with you all. You are not wrong to be furious. You are not wrong to be scared. You are not wrong to wonder what we do today and tomorrow and tomorrow. You are not wrong to notice the brilliance of the sky. You are not wrong to think of your daughter. You are not wrong to imagine people you will never know. You are not wrong to think, this doesn't really affect me, and to know that really it does. You are not wrong to look for pictures of puppies or kittens or flowers or trees. You are not wrong to try to massage the ache out of your own heart. You are not wrong to yell or cry or scream or hide under the covers in your bed. You are not wrong to turn to your neighbor and say, what do we do now? So we come together as neighbors, as siblings to church. May we together in this hour and when we go from here, keep turning towards one another. So come now and let us worship together. Please join in singing our next hymn, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. Please be seated. In our summer services this year, we will be regularly sharing in what we call a time for all ages. Many of you have heard of this before and are used to hearing family-friendly stories read from this chancel, often accompanied by pictures. And this storytelling is certainly on the agenda for the summer, but I wanted to share a piece of our family worship that has been really wonderful for me to take part in this past year. In our family worship that we were doing during the regular church year, we would often include a guided meditation for us to tap into our breath, our bodies, and our imaginations. And so I want to share an example of one such practice with you today, adapted from Reverend Lisa Bovey-Kemper's Body Blessing. So first, I will ask you to get comfortable in your seat and check in with your body. How are you feeling right now? Let's take 3 deep breaths together. In and out. In and out. In and out. And so, as you are comfortable doing, I'm going to guide you through touching your hands to a place on your body. And each time I will ask you to check in with this piece of your body, how it feels in this moment, and offer it a moment of care. So let us begin with our heads. You can put your hands to the top of your head, maybe your forehead. May you be blessed with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. May your mind take you far on your journey. May you always ask good questions and be guided closer to truth. Now, please put your hands on your mouth or your throat. May you be blessed with a clear, strong voice. May your words be honest and caring and never used to hurt another. May you tell the truth with love, even when it is hard. Now, our hearts. May your heart be full and blessed with love. May your heartaches be equal to your joys. Your heart is a strong organ, and it will be with you until the end of your time in this body. May you trust its wisdom. Now, our abdomens. May you always remember that you are a beloved child, part of an unbroken chain of life from your ancestors to you. May your belly button always remind you of this. And may you always know that your body is sacred and wonderful and belongs to you alone. Now, our hands. When you were a baby, your hands were your first contact with the world. Before you could see more than a few feet in front of your face, you grasped the finger of your loved ones. Your hands catch you when you fall. They reach out in love to comfort others. May your hands be gentle and strong. May they help you to do the work that is yours to do in the world. Lastly, we can wrap our arms around our whole body in a full hug. May you be blessed on your journey as your body carries you wherever you must go. May you always remember that you are a whole person and you are never alone. Let us take one more moment of stillness to shower our blessings upon our whole selves, body, mind, and spirit. One last deep breath in and out. May you be guided by compassion and truth, justice and love. May you find rest on the journey when you are tired, and may you remember where you came from. May you be blessed in all things and carry these blessings wherever you go. And please join now in singing our doxology, Spirit of Life.
It's our custom in this congregation to share our offering with organizations in concert with our own mission. For July, we're sharing our offering with Lift Every Voice Oregon, the statewide interfaith coalition that seeks to reduce gun violence across our state. Levo volunteers, including First Unitarian justice activists, have been collecting signatures to get the statewide initiative petition 17 on the November Oregon ballot. Whether or not Levo is able to secure the number of signatures this month for the 2022 general election, they will continue to mobilize to reduce gun violence. We're grateful for Levo's long-term public advocacy and organizing to make our communities safer. If you're joining us today via live stream and wish to give your offering, you may click the donate button on Boxcast or use the QR code that will appear shortly on the screen. Those of you here in person are invited to turn to the information card in front of you, in the back of your seat in front of you, which has a web address and QR code that you can use. And if you wish to give your offering via check or cash today, you may do so at the end of the service. Ushers will be in the narthex with baskets. Thank you for your generosity, which sustains the ministry of this congregation and our partners in the larger community. We'll now gratefully receive our offering. We make space in our service each week for the concerns of our community. Those gathered are welcome to light a candle of intention or leave a prayer request to be held by our ministers and lay ministers. And those of you online can send an intention to prayer at firstunitarianportland.org. Today we hold the family of Paul Kidwell as they gather this weekend to remember Paul up in Bellingham, Washington. Paul died in April of 2020, early in the pandemic, and a memorial gathering for him has been long in coming. Paul was a bright light who loved being part of this congregation. We hold his wife, Chris, and their extended family today as they gather to find closure and hope and celebrate Paul's life. Member Jill Durant continues her recovery from another fall on June 5th when she fractured her kneecap and shin bone. She was hospitalized and has had surgery and is now in skilled nursing and rehab at Holiday Park Plaza, hoping to return home soon. Jill is immensely grateful for the outpouring of love and prayer she's received for these past months, and asks for that we continue to hold her as she works towards a full recovery. And a joy this morning, member Julie Ernest is overjoyed to welcome grandson Lyndon Jules Ernest, a 9-pound bundle of love born this past Tuesday here in Portland, to Mother Carolyn, Father John, and big sister Ansley. They are all doing beautifully. Congratulations, Julie. Will you join me now in prayer? Spirit of life and of love, God of many names and of no name, hear our prayers this day. We come, Spirit, on this Independence Day weekend in gratitude for our lives, for the beauty of these summer days, for this community that brings us together. On this Independence Day weekend, we offer a prayer for our country amid these days when so much would trouble. On this Independence Day, we are especially aware of just how precious and how fragile this democracy of ours can be. We're mindful of so much that we cannot take for granted. We are so mindful how the power of some can come at the expense of others. On this Independence Day, we bring our fears, our grief, our anger, our hope about what our lives and our children's lives may be. Remind us, Spirit, of our striving to create this ever more perfect union. Remind us that until we are all free, none of us can be truly free. Call us to courage. Call us to hope. Call us, Spirit, to a vision of community, a country worthy of the name beloved. Blessed be, and amen. Let's take a few moments now to be together in silence. Let's remain seated as we sing our next hymn. Our reading this morning is titled, Don't Argue with Salvation, and is written by Reverend Alex Jensen. Salvation can be a loaded word in our UU communities, and this text offers no clear definition of salvation, no guidance on what we are to make of it. Our sermon today will begin to ask these questions, so this is an invitation. As you listen, you might want to do so with the spirit of curiosity. If it helps, you may want to pay attention to how it lands within you, or you may wish to simply let the words wash over you. Alex Jensen's words. Don't argue with salvation when it arrives on your shores. Don't try to dismiss or deny it. Give it your undivided attention. Do not be ashamed of how or why or when you found it. Your journey here has been sacred. Greet salvation as an old, welcomed guest. Meet it not with fanfare or pomp. Instead, put the kettle on to boil. Pull up a chair and let it speak life to you. Find the tender parts of your body and soul that are warmed by its words. Don't argue with salvation when it arrives at your door. Bid it wide welcome. Don't be ashamed of where the path has led. Do not be embarrassed from all of the detours or missed plans. Don't be shy about what it is that feeds you, that nourishes and refreshes your soul. Don't be ashamed of how it greets you instead, welcoming you in its warm embrace. How could it be anything different? Don't argue with salvation when it stirs in your heart, when it brings you to act for others, when it calls you to street corners and picket lines. Don't question it too harshly, to the point of missing it as it passes through. Relish it with every glimpse. Savor it with every taste of hope and good news. Don't be afraid to bring that blessed good news to others, to let your beautiful body carry its light, though heavy burden. Don't be afraid when its saving power destroys just as much as it rebuilds, uplifts, and renews. Don't argue with salvation when it finds you when you least expect it, in an empty parking lot, on the kitchen floor, in the eyes and arms of a beloved. Don't try too hard to count its many ways. They're immeasurable. Don't exhaust yourself with naming it in words that fail to grasp it with loose fingers. Surrender in those moments when you find yourself in its presence. Yield to it with an open clay heart ready for molding. Don't try to shut it out too soon or run too far from it. It won't make you stay. Indeed, it can't, but it sure wishes to welcome you home. Don't argue with salvation when it saves your life, when it harbors your soul from great pain and harm, when it stays with you in the midst of the storm. Don't give up on it too soon if it arrives a bit later than expected. I promise it's working on it. It's working on it. Don't be too angry with it if it doesn't look like you'd expect. Love it as you love your best self. Love it as your worst self. We could all use more grace. Serve it with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Don't worry about its fragility. If it truly can take or bear the trials ahead of you and already in your midst, it's so much stronger than you think.
I want to start my sermon by telling you a little bit about what it was like for me to grow up Unitarian Universalist. For much of my childhood, I didn't feel that different from my peers. In the South, where I am from, families go to church, and so mine didn't seem special or weird. It was all just church. But eventually, as the pains of growing up began to settle in for myself and those around me, I began to notice that my church gave me something that many other kids didn't have. I started to feel like I had this secret superpower, a tool I could use to protect myself and maybe even others. It was simple, really, this tool. It was the steady, unflinching knowledge that I and everyone I knew contained a divine spark. There is this essential part of each of us that has the potential for goodness, for love. The knowledge that we are all worthy of sharing our spark with the world, of loving and being loved in return, does feel like this warm, protective blanket. And it sounds a little bit cliche even, but it is a radical, life-saving good news that can hold us in storms and remind us of our inherent wholeness, even when we feel broken. It is a truth that many people are never told. You see, this good news was something that so many people I loved needed desperately. My queer friends who love differently than their families or communities believe is good and right. My friends whose brains work differently than others. My friends who were raised in cold and unsafe homes. They had all been told in different ways and different places that there was something inherent about them that was wrong, broken. And who knew how or if they could ever be made right again? The superpower that my church gave me did not make it so that I could magically fix my friends. I couldn't offer them this single revelation that they had inherent worth and dignity, and then poof, they would never feel brokenness again. That's not how it works. It did not even mean that I could love them into feeling okay. It just meant that I could love them honestly and honor them. It meant that I could be one person in the world to celebrate their divine spark, to know the goodness and love that they were capable of. And this is what we do when we come together in church, right? I have heard so many stories in my life of Unitarian Universalists who were saved by this kind of love. They came to church and were given a chance to get intimate with their wholeness, a chance to practice honoring the divine spark in everyone around them, a chance to love and be loved in return. What I am talking about here is the first of our Unitarian Universalist principles, which states, "We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person." During our Sunday worship services this summer, we are taking time to slow down to explore and reflect on each of these principles, all 8 of them since we adopted number 8 last year in this congregation. In my time with you so far, I have heard it said on more than one occasion that some of you wish we talked explicitly about the principles more, so here we are doing that. It is my hope that these services will inspire you to do your own reflection, to be in conversation about our UU values and how they show up in our lives as individuals and as a church community. I need to give an important caveat, though. Last week, as Reverend Tom mentioned, many of us attended the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, both at the Convention Center just across the river and online. And at this annual business meeting, there was this really central agenda item that I need you to know about. It was called the Article 2 Study Commission. It is a group of people who have been tasked with examining and recommending revisions to Article 2 of our association's bylaws. And I know it sounds super tedious and bureaucratic, but it's important. Article 2 is the portion of our bylaws that contains our principles, our statement of purpose, and our sources, and a couple of other pieces. So this revision process is a really big deal. It will help us to align our written statements about who we are with the faith community that we are already evolving into. In just a couple of weeks, we will actually have a whole worship service centered on reflections about General Assembly. So you'll get a chance to hear from delegates about what they learned and what they're taking away with them. So I hope you will be there. But I wanted to share this piece about the Article 2 Study Commission now because it is so relevant to our conversation about the principles. And if you are like me, this process might make you a little bit nervous to hear about, and I want to affirm that that's okay. I have spent my whole life anchored by these principles as they currently stand. Will they change so much in this revision process that it feels like something has been lost? Will we lose beloved community members who might no longer see themselves and their values reflected in new principles? These are questions that I think a lot of people have right now. But I want to offer a note of encouragement. I have a lot of trust in the process. You see, this work began years ago. It is slow. The members of this commission are involving as many people as they can at all levels of our denomination. This is not happening behind closed doors. It is participatory, democratic, and it is a process that we all as Unitarian Universalists are undertaking together, and there are ways for anybody to get involved. So also, no changes will be made officially for a couple of years, so the principles are not going away right away without thought, so just to share that. And we have also done this process before. I often forget, but our current set of principles wasn't actually adopted until 1985, which wasn't that long ago. The original purposes and principles from 1961 looked very different than the ones we know today. They had a lot of language like dignity of man and ideals of brotherhood. There was even one principle which enshrined Judeo-Christian heritage as the supreme expression of God's love above other religious traditions. And so, knowing where we are now as a faith tradition, it feels pretty outdated, and I'm glad we went through that revision process. So it is time again to examine our statements of belief, and there is a real beauty here. Because our faith is non-creedal, this means we do not believe that any single combination of words can hold an ultimate and complete truth. We know that the process of evolution is ongoing, and it's what puts the life in this living tradition. And so I apologize, it's a bit of a long caveat, but I want to be clear about what we are doing this summer when we explore our principles. We are not here to study the word to become better Unitarian Universalists, and I'm not asking anyone to memorize the whole list. Rather, this worship series is about reflecting on our values as a spiritual practice. We can use the principles in their current form to do this practice, to explore what a life lived Unitarian Universalist looks like. What are the essential truths here that we know we will carry forward into the new day? How can we deepen in commitment and understanding on our journey? So it is in this roundabout way that we arrive here at Principle 1. I'll read it out again. We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. This principle and its superpower genius really has two parts of it. First, it says that I, the unique individual that I am, have inherent worth and dignity. I can exercise power in the world. Just by being born, I have done all I need to earn my place, and nothing can take that away. Not even all the worst things I've done or all the worst things that have happened to me. I am not a saint, but I can choose to lean into this spark and be a blessing upon the earth. Second, If this is true for me, it is true for everyone else upon this earth too. You and I are the same in this way. You, the unique individual that you are, have inherent worth and dignity. You are worthy of respect. You can exercise power in this world. Just by being born, you have done all you need to earn your place, and nothing can take that away. Not even all the worst things you've done or all the worst things that have happened to you. You are not a saint, but you can choose to lean into that spark and be a blessing upon the earth. And this includes everyone, even people who make decisions that I don't like, people who make big, hurtful mistakes. This principle helps me to love others, to recognize their inherent wholeness despite all appearances of brokenness. And this is part of what leads us to be so justice-oriented, right? We have faith in this wholeness and want to live in a world that affirms it as fully as our God does. We want a world that makes it possible for people to lean into their goodness, to be treated with respect in honor of their full dignity. Let's be honest. To me, this is what hurts so much about the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. Legal abortion should certainly be a healthcare option that is available to people who are seeking it for whatever reason. The human act to bring a new life into the world is a sacred one that must be done by choice, without coercion or criminalization. The new policies of this post-Roe world that we are now living in make a mockery of our first principle. In a world that affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we would grant every person full bodily autonomy and trust them to make the reproductive decisions that are right for them. Let me repeat this. Affirming the worth and dignity of every person means trusting them to make decisions about what they do with their own bodies. Trusting that those decisions are sometimes difficult, sometimes twinged with loss, but always sacred. It is infuriating, heart-wrenching to think of how many people will be denied their bodily autonomy in the coming months and years, to think of how many who will suffer trauma, prosecution, and death as a result of trying to assert their worth and dignity and bodily autonomy. In our aching world, we need the vision of the first principle. We need its fierce love like a secret weapon that we know cannot be taken away. Even when the situation feels this dire, we, at the very least, know that judges, politicians, police cannot take away anyone's inherent worth and dignity, especially not the Black and brown and LGBTQ people that they most despise. This principle, at its best, can save us from denying ourselves and one another. It helps us to see each other as whole, despite it all. Rooted in this place of wholeness, we can better love one another too. And when Reverend Tom gave the reading this morning, he promised that I would return to it in the sermon, so here I'm doing that. In his reading, Jensen writes, "Don't argue with salvation when it arrives on your shores. Don't try to dismiss or deny it. Give it your undivided attention. Do not be ashamed of how or why or when you found it. Your journey here has been sacred." Salvation. It is a big word, a hard one for those of us who don't believe in a celestial kingdom waiting for our souls when we die. For those of us who don't believe that there is anything we need to do to be more worthy of divine love than we already are. What does it mean to be saved? But salvation is an important word for us as Unitarian Universalists because the universal part of our name refers to universal salvation. The original doctrine of our forebears that proclaimed God is love and no God named love would send their precious creation to an eternity of suffering. Early Universalists meant it when they said that we were all saved. Of course, there has always been diversity in terms of how and under what conditions and what does it mean. Do people need a time to purge and atone for their errors on earth before entering heaven? Does everyone just immediately go? There's a lot of questions. But the point was that no one, absolutely no one, was so far from God that they could not be reconciled through love. For me, salvation is less about what happens when we die, but the miracle that we get to live into the beloved community here on earth and in these bodies, and the knowledge that each of us has inherent worth and dignity helps me reach out for that beloved community. This principle helps me love my friends and neighbors more fiercely, no matter how much we ache, no matter how much the world tries to deny people their dignity. We are not worthy because of our accomplishments, not because of the things we have or the work we've produced, the way that we look, or anything that our lives of striving have achieved for us. We are worthy because we are here. We are messy humans with a divine spark. Worthy always, no matter what, of loving and being loved. Amen. We are saved each time we remember this. So how do we live this principle? We must take it seriously, let it challenge us and surprise us. As we go from this place and into this new week, I invite you to pay more attention to the ways that our first principle is working in your life. Are there ways you might be shutting its holy, saving truth out, denying it or forgetting it? Are there opportunities to come more alive for others, to fiercely love your friends and neighbors, to show up more fully so that this world might better honor the worth and dignity of all? Our hearts can always open wider, know truth more deeply, and love more fiercely. Let us practice this together. Will you pray with me now? Spirit of life, dear God that we name love, please let us feel your presence. Here in this space, in this beautiful community, we seek to know you. May all who enter here know that they are worthy and dignified. May all who enter here, saved in their own way and time, embrace this opportunity to practice loving one another. And let us not forget that this love is not boundaried by these walls. This love is not meant for just an elect few. All are worthy. All are dignified. Even when the world tries to deny it, this love cannot be taken away. May each of us be vessels for this divine love. May we reach out toward one another even when we feel completely broken, especially when we feel completely broken. May we remind one another of our inherent wholeness, and may this love continue to save us time and again. Amen, and blessed be. And please join in singing our closing hymn, Love Will Guide Us. am leaving here with gratitude that I got to spend this time with you all today and you all online as well. As we go out into the day, may we remember that we are worthy no matter what. May we in our whole bodies be rooted in this knowledge. May we use it to turn again and yet again towards one another. This is the day we have been given. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.